All right, you guys, I'm just going to give this about a minute.
Okay.
So there's a person who, I've talked to in the past on lives. His name is John. Is it Liccione?
Liccione.
Liccione, sorry. And he has written a book. He has ran for Congress. He is somebody who is trying to make a difference. So he was going to come on here and just talk about. He has a book called The Grand Unifying Theory of Putin and Trump. And he has a poem, and he's going to tell you what poem is, and he's going to tell us like how we can actually make a difference against what's going on right now. Good morning, Karma, Dolores, Karen, Assemblywomen, Skip Day, Charlotte, Elegy, Colleen, Patty. Nice to meet you this morning. All right, so John, take it from there.
Sure. My name's John Liccione, and I did run for Congress as a Democrat last year. I was a Reagan Republican for 4 decades, Air Force veteran, NSA intelligence analyst, cybersecurity executive in private industry. I'm all these MacGyver things in one. I'm an electrical engineer. So um, I've got all this experience in government, private industry, and the intel community and cyber. And I flipped for obvious reasons that I shouldn't have to explain from a Republican to a Democrat in 2019 in April. And it's hard to switch parties, but I had almost come to the conclusion in April 2019 that I was going to switch, but I wanted to take one last effort, or I felt I needed to do this, and I'll tell you what it was, to save the GOP from being captured by Putin and Trump, and I call them Putin-Trump with a dash in between them because they're like one-minded, melded mind, and we need to look at them as a single entity. So I wrote this book, and it was originally just sort of like an essay and a plan of action. And I went to Marco Rubio's, he was our senator at the time, to pitch him on these concepts. And I had a meeting with his staff in Clearwater, and they all just blew me off. And I realized they were gone. The GOP was already dead. The GOP of my young, my 20s and 30s was ghost. It was a ghost, and I needed to do some things that I could do because I got a crap ton of intelligence that goes way back to 2013 on Putin and Trump and Russia and all this, the GRU and the child sex trafficking ring that we're all hearing a lot about now in the Epstein files release and all that. I was back in 2013. I was working this problem. I was a victim of this problem, and so I wrote this book, and then I developed a concept for a new media company that would flip the script on Putin and the Putin wiki, like they did it in 2016 against Hillary. And so I bought the domain name RussiaLeaks.com. Also, it's Russia Leaks too, but Russia Leaks was the anti-Putin wiki, basically. And the idea would be to wage psychological warfare against this evil regime, just as a counteroffensive, if you will. So I wrote this book, but I didn't publish it until 2022 after Putin invaded Ukraine. So that's a little bit of a historical setup. The subtitle for the book is Pay No Attention. So it's The Grand Unifying Theory of Putin-Trump, written in 2019, published in 2022. The subtitle is Pay No Attention to the White Russian Behind the Curtain. And the subtitle is Vladimir Putin's race-baiting fascist Wizard of Oz strategy to take down America without firing a shot. And it's dated April 14, 2019. And I'd like to read a few quotes out of the front section here. Putin did it with Crimea, and remember this is back in 2013-14 when he seized Crimea. He did it in Crimea. He's been trying to do it in Ukraine. He's been trying to do it to Western Europe, and now he's doing it to us. It's happening right in front of us right now. But like the blissfully ignorant frog in the slowly warming pot, we're not seeing it, and we won't see it unless we can be led out of the fog that is Putin's psychological and cyber warfare attack. One day we're going to wake up and realize that our freedoms are gone. First, Putin will come for our free press. Then he will neutralize and decapitate our democratic institutions, like the DOJ. And I wrote this 7 years ago. And our national defense infrastructure. Then he'll come for our religious freedoms, then our free speech, our property, our guns. And then he'll come for us, the American people. Anyone who speaks out and resists will be seized and delivered directly to Putin's freshly minted American gulags. Now, this isn't another anti-Trump diatribe. It's a anti-Putin one. I don't so much blame Trump. Oh, yeah, I do blame Trump. I blame Putin more so, though, and I blame us, the American people, Congress, and the media, for enabling Putin, the Putin-Trump, and for not even realizing they were doing it. Perhaps Putin's an evil genius, and he's distracting us with his Trump sock puppet, and we are enabling him. It's time for an intervention to break the American addiction to the siren song of the Putin-Trump Fox News agitation propaganda machine. And like any successful intervention, it must deliver a psychological and intellectual shock to the addict through a combination of brutal truth, tough love, and so we can detox them and to get them over the tipping point that'll start them on the road to recovery and break that addiction cycle. The shock to the American system, in this case, must serve to break the Vulcan mind meld that Putin, Trump, and Fox have on the psyches of what are now 38% of the American electorate, 98% of the Republican Party, 99.99% of what used to be conservative Fox News pundits like the old Bill O'Reilly, and whatever percentage of the user accounts that Russia has co-opted on Facebook, Twitter, etc. The news media, even MSNBC and the Democratic Party and the other 62% of the electorate are confused, we're disjointed, we're distracted by the Putin-Trump flea circus, so the tweets and the lies and the disinformation, and we're thrashing about ineffectively, and we don't see things clearly through this propaganda fog. And this is my America intervention. I'll stop there. That's basically most of the intro. If we want to talk about that and the concepts here, I'll stop talking for a bit.
Yeah, I think, when X, put on their platform country of origin and we found out the DHS was located in Tel Aviv, that there's foreign actors involved. And you have most of these counts that say they're this blonde woman from Texas or from Nigeria and Russia and God knows where. That, yes, we have had a disinformation campaign logged against us for many years. And the last year, we've had Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly, who knew the whole time. They're claiming now, Fox is just Russia propaganda. Yes. And you knew that the entire time you were working there. And we have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, and you have people like Macy. Go look into them. Do you think that they have ties to Russia? Tulsi Gabbard. Go look up her name in Google. Tulsi, any connections to Russia? Go look into that.
Yeah.
So, if you look at, there's this guy named Sergei Gore, I think is what they claim his name is. I put out on, I think it was July 1st of this 2025, you guys. I did a post. I said, "Is Russia in the White House?" ? And go look. Is his name really Sergei Gore of Malta, or is he actually this other guy from Russia? And yeah, it's a shortened name of Gore is actually a longer name. It's Russian. Anyways,
it's somehow karma, or not karma, irony that the guy that they would install to be the HR guy to clear people to hire at the White House would himself not have passed a top secret security background investigation as part of his vetting. And that's sort of the MO now, the Trump admin. They don't do this shit for anybody now, unless they're maybe Democrat.
The first 24 hours, I think, or 48 hours of them coming into the White House, they stopped doing background checks for security clearances, you guys. They stopped doing background checks for security clearances, people. What the shit? It's pretty bad. And the fact, I think it was June 12th, and I screenshotted it because I was like, holy shit. Russia National Day put out by the White House and Marco Rubio. And we're supposed to celebrate the Russians. So, and I know if you guys watch Lev Parnas, his cousin Oleg, he's a wonderful man trying to get generators out to people of the Ukraine because they're having to hit the fuel tanks and stuff in Russia so that China won't pay them for that money. which would be funding the war. They're all cold, so he's trying to get these generators out. Well, anyways, Oleg had said after this asshole rolled out a red carpet to a war criminal and someone who has stolen something between 25 to 30,000 Ukrainian children and are trafficking them, rolled out a red carpet with our military on bended knee for this piece of shit.
I was
Right?
so
Right
enraged
after that,
and in
right
tears
after
when
that,
I saw that. Yeah.
right after that, Oleg put out pictures, you guys, of how the tanks were coming in and they had American flags and Russia flags on them. And he turned his phone around to his laptop and he showed us the commercials coming out of Russia that day. And they had it was a female and male figure skater, and one had Russian flag on the shirt and the other one had an American flag on the shirt. And then they were combining hands. And that's the shit that they were putting out that day. All right, go. Sorry, John.
Oh, yeah. So I'd like to read a little, to move on in the book a little bit and talk about race and guns as core strategy. Uh, so by focusing insidiously on defending white America against what are mostly brown, unarmed, on foot civilian Hispanic men and women and children, 99.9% of whom are innocent, law-abiding people that are fleeing persecution and exploitation by drug cartels, sex trafficking rings, and such. And they're just seeking a better life for their kids, like my Italian immigrant parents and grandparents did. They're refusing to defend our country from white Russian spies and military hackers who are armed to the teeth with these cyber weapons and who are still hacking our computer systems and our voting machines and are hacking our democratic institutions. This Putin-Trump plays, it's appealing to the worst instincts and the latent racism we as all humans are all capable of feeling. But we've learned to recognize, most of us, it as racism. And we suppress those feelings as modern day Americans. I mean, I wasn't raised in a community that had any black folks in it. It was except the guy that Herbie, the UPS guy. And so it wasn't until I was in the Air Force that I was exposed to my brothers and sisters in the African American community, and they're just like us. You know, they're great people, and they're a couple fools, just like white folk. It's human. It's a human thing. So the Putin-Trump sales pitch is distillable down to this: white Russia hackers, good. Brown Hispanic civilian migrants, bad. Look to the Mexican border, America, not to the east, to white Russia, because they're white like you and there's nothing to see there. They're saying that we have to defend against the brown Hispanics and spend our billions and our limited resources and attention there instead of against Putin's legions of these white Russian cyber warriors. In this, Trump's wall is Putin's wall. Trump's race is Putin's race. And Trump's goals are Putin's goals. Putin's laughing at our gullibility while Ronald Reagan is turning over in his grave. Now, I was a Korean linguist in the Air Force and intelligence analyst, and I stood watch against the North Korean enemy as a young man at NSA. I didn't spy on Americans; I spied on North Korea. Um, there, so I want to talk about North Korea for a second, which is one of the countries that Putin is sending kidnapped Ukrainian children to for re-education camps.
Torturing them.
Yeah. Has Trump held private meetings without staffers and confiscated translator notes from any meetings he's had with any head of state other than Putin? Think about that. How about with any black or brown world leaders? Any Asian world leaders other than Kim Jong-un? We got to recognize this for what it is. It's a Putin-hacked strategy of disinformation, misdirection, and propaganda to distract and divide the attention of the American people by playing on our racial tensions and Second Amendment gun seizure fears. It's why he specifically chose to have Maria Butina infiltrate the NRA in 2016. There are no hot button issues hotter than gun rights and race in America, except maybe abortion rights. It's worked on half of the electorate in 2016, and it's still working on the 38% of remaining American Trump zealots. So, and remember, I wrote this in 2019. So I want to talk about cybersecurity and hacking and how the concepts therein apply to what we're experiencing here. You know, we're all confused. How can this be happening? So I'm going to talk about these concepts with you and introduce them. Putin through Trump has effectively hacked 49% of the American people's psyches, 98% of the Republican Party, etc., and 100% of its owner, Fox News owner, Rupert Murdoch. You can hack a computer, you can hack a person's mind psychologically and a person's body physically. You can hack an agency or government or a country or people, a news organization, and from there, an entire nation. And the first steps in any hacking campaign, and this is called the cyber kill chain, a thing developed by Lockheed some time ago. The first step in a hacking campaign in the cyber kill chain is reconnaissance and probing for vulnerabilities. And once the targets of vulnerabilities are known, the hacker develops exploits for each of those vulnerabilities that are targeted in custom. And then you execute those exploits to take remote control of the target, be it a person, a government, a news outlet, or a computer. And once you have remote control, you own that target and you can use it to launch attacks on other targets. And I think Putin hacked the mind and body of Trump, the businessman, back as early, perhaps, as Trump's meeting in Las Vegas in 2013, where he inked his deal with Russian oligarch Aris Agalarov for the Moscow Miss Universe pageant. That happened, I think, in June 2013. And it was the same time Putin, I think, directed Trump to form his first presidential exploratory committee. And this is why Putin was so desperate to get Trump elected over Clinton and then Harris, of course. Otherwise, why would Putin even give a damn about Trump? He invested billions of rubles in cyber warfare, disinformation campaigns, fomenting division, white nationalist hatred, and gun owner fears of Second Amendment repeal if Clinton got elected. Someone I loved in 2016, in the matter of a couple of months, was someone who wouldn't hurt a fly turned into a raging racist Trump zealot right before my eyes. It's really personal, actually, to me, what we're seeing here. What happened to me and my family, quite frankly, it feels like it's like a microcosm is what's happening on a global scale now. So, I'll stop there. Those are some of the concepts in the book. It's a short book, actually. It's how many pages is this? Well, it's up on Amazon, The Grand Unifying Theory of Putin-Trump, so you can get it electronically. And if anybody that's listening here wants a I don't know, a signed copy, I can send it to you, sign it and send it to you as a PDF. Uh, so it's my gift to the world. In the book, at the end of the book, I said the POAM, or what's in the military, what's a POAM is a program management term, a plan of action and milestones. And unlike most other, this is my 2024 congressional campaign shirt. The plan of action and milestone, politicians don't think in that way. Okay, so I'm for this issue, I'm against this issue, so vote for me, and I'll vote, this way. That's sort of the normal politicking. That isn't the politicking we need now, and that isn't the kind of leadership in the party and for candidates America needs now. We need, okay, here's my issue, here's my goal, here's my timeline, and this is the set of things we're going to do, like a project plan.
Yes.
And this is how, and then execute that plan. And you have to be nimble and agile with that plan, make adjustments along the way. It's sort of more Sun Tzu, right? Hit the enemy where they ain't kind of thing, where they'll never expect it, a kind of mentality. And I'm on the cusp of filing to run for Congress again, by the way, and I haven't filed with the FEC yet, but Anna Paulina Luna, who I call the MAGA Princess of Chaos, who's the Florida 13th District Congresswoman here and is a Putin puppet, I think that we need politicians. Well, actually, we don't need politicians. I'm not really a politician. I'm an
problem
engineer.
solvers is what we need. We need problem solvers.
Exactly. What's the goal? What's the mission? Right? What's the solution? What's the vision? We should be voting for candidates that can articulate a vision for the future, right? The completeness of vision and the ability to execute it. Right? That's actually how high-tech companies get graded by Gartner Research. In the Gartner quadrant of the folks in the companies in the upper right quadrant are the market leaders because they've been able to had a complete vision and were able to execute that vision in the real world. And so I come to this our problem set here. What's the biggest problem we have right now? I don't even have to say what it is. We all know what it is right now. So how do we solve that problem? And here's just a couple examples that I wrote back in 2019. Day one, declare Trump's Twitter account, which is now Truth Social, etc., to be a Russian weapon of mass psychological warfare and shut it down, keep it down, thereby denying Putin that proxy presidential bully pulpit. American news outlets on day 30 turn their backs on Trump and his mouthpieces like his lawyers and and Conway, this is sort of dated, and refuse to invite them onto their shows to cover his rallies, his press conferences, and just deplatform the son of a bitch.
Well, I think here, I mean, when you look at treason, what is treason? That's working with your enemies. And what's Rupert Murdoch been doing? He's been working for who? Not our allies, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
didn't Rupert Murdoch start out in Russia with his
Yeah.
media company? And I mean, so I look at that and I go, if you're working with foreign places, do we just shut down Fox? I mean, that's an
Yeah.
investigation I think that needs to happen. I think you started an investigation of that. I also think we need an actual bill in place that says that if you're going to put out lying propaganda, that you actually have to pay money, like fines. What you have to put out
Yeah.
is the truth. We reinstate the fairness doctrine so
Yeah.
that we have all these
Exactly.
different platforms will be held to a standard. And if you're not going to be held to that, if you're going to continue lying, right, it's fine to put out the truth that we may not agree with, but it's the truth. And that's fine. It's not that you have a disagreement, it's that you can't put out lies and suggest that is the truth. Um, I really get tired of these pundits, just reiterating, yelling lies, interrupting with lies. And if you just repeat it enough, people believe it. Like, if you're going to continue to lie, then get the hell off. Like that's not what
Yeah.
we're going to be about. But you can put fines in place, you guys, for that. And the FCC, we can put rules in place on the FCC to say if you're going to continue to put anything more than 5% lies or 10% lies, you put a thing out there, 90% of the time you got to be putting out the truth. And if you're not going to be doing that, maybe we shut you down from the FCC. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
spitballing some
the
ideas.
problem. Yeah, I had the same idea in my book actually. We so revoking the see with Fox News. I've actually I had a girlfriend once after I got divorced who was a she was a lawyer for the FCC and then was recruited by News Corp, right? The Fox News owner, and she was a lobbyist, right? And they were doing this deal. News Corp was doing a merger deal to merge with DirecTV back in the day. Anyway, this I'm losing the plot here. But the whole idea is the FCC has the power to revoke the broadcast licenses. Now, Fox News itself isn't a broadcast; it's a streaming right thing, but it's cable. But the local Fox News affiliates in every city, right? They're broadcasting on the AM, FM, they're broadcasting on local, signals still. So you can revoke the broadcast licenses for every Fox News affiliate in America. That's that's called offensive, going on offense in defense of democracy but until we pass
I
a
think
law
Yeah, that's
that
what I'm saying is I think we need to put standards in place because then they can't come back and say, "Well, you're just trying to get rid of this particular viewpoint." No, it's about getting rid of lies. It's getting rid of propaganda from foreign influences, which, again, I go to what is the definition of treason? Like, this is about, our country and putting out the truth. And understandably, sometimes, someone makes a understandable mistake or that kind of thing. And that's why I say it's a 90% rule. 10% of the time, shit's going to happen and that's just being human. But, when you're spewing this shit and it's 90% just complete BS, no, we can shut you down from the FCC. But I also think we just reinstate the fairness doctrine. We install a bill that says if you are putting out lying propaganda that you can be charged 2 to 5% of your income, similar to what Mexico just did this, 2025. I think
Oh,
we
I didn't
also
know
put
that.
in,
I didn't know that. I'll have to check that out.
yeah,
Interesting.
and I think we, put in some, standards and say, if you're calling for the murdering of people, that you get your FCC license pulled. You have to fire that person or you get your FCC license pulled, right? Because we've now had two different assholes. We had Kilmeade go out there and say, well, maybe we just lethally inject the homeless people, kill
Oh
them.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like that right there.
And he's still on the air.
Yeah, he
Right.
needs to be fired. And if you're not going to fire him, then we're pulling your FCC license because
Yeah.
that's not what no. Um, I also think that, part of this didn't just come from our news. Part of this came from, church. Now, here's the thing. And I've said this before. I have a friend of mine who's Buddhist. I have a friend of mine who is most hardcore Catholic, and she's got a mouth like a trucker. But she means what she says, so I have respect for that. We don't always agree on certain things, and I have another person who's from Africa, and she's the most devout, nicest, sweetest person you ever freaking meet. So like I come from, and we have some people we know from China who are atheists who totally believe in, because we've had conversations on this, do unto others as I've done unto you. They absolutely believe in that. They just don't believe in God. That's their own thing. But my point is, they're all really good people. They're just coming from different wheelhouses. So I am not, I guess what I'm saying is I'm not attacking religion, but what I am saying is that we do have a segment of our religious communities in this country that are pushing propaganda. They are pushing, and I think there's been instances, you guys, where they have documented that, the Republican Party was giving money to certain preachers to say certain things, right? And so, and I'm sure DNC at some point in time may have done something similar, but for a fact, I'd seen, I don't know if it's on one of these broadcasting, it wasn't Walter Cronkite, and he was older, like I didn't see a lot of his stuff, but maybe it was a Dan Rather thing or something. And they went over how, and I think this was like in the 70s, you guys, so it was a while ago, how they were actually giving money. But I've seen things in the last, 2 weeks where there was a guy talking about how Trump should take Venezuela at the pulpit, you guys. I also see that there's, certain guys like Doug Wilson saying that the 19th Amendment needs to be repealed and us women don't deserve a right to vote. Go look into his church, go look into allegations of abuse to women and children in his church. You should go look into that. But what I'm saying is that we need reform of our religious entities to say, first off, you need to be like a lot of other countries are doing now. You need to file a tax return. You need to say how much money is coming in from where, and we know what's going on because some of these churches are taking advantage of the fact that, oh, well, we're nonprofit. Well, guess what? The car wash next door is also nonprofit. And since we use that, 2 or 3 times a year, we're going to consider them nonprofit, not have to pay taxes on it, right? That you can look at that, but you can also then put qualifications around what they're doing. And you can say, if you're doing things like saying you want to take the, vote away from certain people, when you're saying, certain people are less than other people, certain people should be killed, whether that because they're not straight or they're not white, or whatever the reason, that then we can pull your license to run that business. So we're not propagating that hate in those institutions.
Yeah,
And
that's a
so
tough one when you're talking about freedom of religion and freedom of speech. That's um that can be that can go both ways, right? I mean, we just had Don Lemon, right, threatened with a criminal investigation for reporting uh ICE protesters that went into this church where the pastor was supposedly an ICE guy. And so that can be that can be weaponized, right, against both evangelical churches as well as non-denominational churches, the Catholic Church or others. So
I
for
mean,
me, that
but I feel that comes under hate speech. And if you're saying that you're going to take the vote away from a certain segment of the population, certain segment of the population should be killed, or don't have the right to be alive, or should
well
be
that
beaten. I
that's like
consider that a hate
yeah,
speech. And I
that's
think
20 bridges too
and,
far. 20
and
bridges
I
too
think,
far. Yeah.
we put a bill out there saying that, you have to put in a tax, right, every year, so we know what's going on there. And
Mhm.
I think, we maybe put some specifications on that because religion in this country right now, you guys, you have a name of your whatever. I'm the First Presbyterian Church of Chicago, whatever the hell it is, right? And you have a mission statement, a vision statement. You have, whatever. There's like 4 qualifications, 5 qualifications for having a religion, and none of it is accountability for the money that you're getting in. So I say we put a 35% tax on them, and if you allow your parking lot to be used by people as a safe place to sleep in overnight, possibly have the ability to sleep overnight in the pews of your church, if you allow that to happen, 15% of that tax is gone. Gone. You're not paying 15%. Then you have to prove that 15% of the money you're making goes to helping your community. I don't care if that's soup kitchens. I don't care if that's having P.O. boxes in the front so your homeless people have a place that they could, you know, they could try to get a job, and because they have a PO box through your area, guess what? Then they could, possibly get a job. If that's putting in showers or some general restroom areas in the back of their property so that the homeless people have a dignified way to, I don't know, use a restroom and, have a shower once a week. And, they come in once a week and you give them a token and once a week they can get a shower. Okay, that would be okay. So if you do 15% of the money you're making goes back to your community, 20% taxes you're not paying. So that would be something where, okay, in this case, that person would not have to spend 35% taxes. They'd still be paying 0% in taxes, but there's some accountability for them being a nonprofit. I think we put some guardrails on this because we have these mega churches and these people just keep making, here's another mansion, here's another jet. They don't pay any taxes on anything. And I don't see them, these big mega churches, I think a lot of them are scamsters. I see these smaller churches. I think those are the ones who are actually trying to do what was the intent and to really help their communities. And, they have a shoestring budget and they're still spending more money and helping their communities than the multi-million-dollar mega churches do.
Yeah,
So
that's
I'm not
the question is always for me, what would Jesus do? You know,
right.
the teachings of Jesus are, I think, one of the most powerful and righteous teachings that we know we have here. And the what would Jesus do question is the first question, like child sex trafficking, right? If Jesus
Yeah.
controlled the Department of Defense and intelligence agencies' budgets or was president, what would Jesus do? You know what he would do? And you know what I would do or what I will do if elected is declare war on these and interdict these child sex trafficking networks, go after the money, penetrate these organizations, infiltrate them, interdict them, and end them. Right? Our children are our most precious national treasures. And you know what? You know what? The only thing we really have is a privately funded nonprofit. It's a child sex trafficking I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it's a nonprofit that is the clearinghouse for like child sexual abuse material, kids that have been trafficked and all that. I mean, we don't even have, it's not even a national security priority. It's not funded there's no DOD and NSA or whatever budget. There's no anti-child sex trafficking watch center that's manned 24/7. It should be, we don't even treat this as the national security emergency that it is. Instead, we're putting billions of dollars, we're handing billions of dollars over to ICE and Kristi Noem. We're focusing, yeah, we need secure southern borders, but
And
that's not what
and
they're doing.
and and that money goes to at least 3 tender age facilities in Texas where there's children under 6 years old being held without their parents, which I believe is all illegal. And I wonder, since we've like defunded 69 different programs for human trafficking and child trafficking in this country in the last year or so, since this regime came to power, I wonder what's happening to those children that are in a facility states away from their family with no legal guardianship, which is all illegal. I wonder what's happening to them.
Yeah, it's so I'd like to talk about um this other thing. It's this other issue, and it's and my idea is to solve this problem, and it's the southern border problem, actually. And this is sort of divergent thinking. You've probably never heard this idea before in this context, but it's in my book. Through a massive by month 24, through a massive spending program, um, we outspend and leapfrog Russia in cyber warfare, seize the strategic cybersecurity high ground. We extend our cybersecurity umbrella over our democratic allies in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. As part of this program, we also fund and deploy 1,000 new polygraph examiners and machines and shelters to the borders and points of entry to detect and intercept the drug runners, criminals, scoundrels, and terrorists attempting to slip into our country. If you refuse a polygraph, you're gone. You fail a polygraph, you're gone. And it doesn't have to be just a polygraph. It can be other higher tech lie detector kind of things. You don't get to come into the country if you can't even pass. I mean, I had to take a polygraph to get my top secret security clearance as an 18-year-old airman first class. Passing a polygraph should be the minimum entrance criteria into stage 0 of our immigration detention and court system. Right. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Perfect's the enemy of the good here. It can be 95% accurate, and we could be reducing these sex traffickers, terrorists, and all this criminals from infiltrating our southern border. We hand the Republicans, the MAGA, we hand Trump this vulnerability by not addressing this it's a system, and we have to deconstruct this system and reverse engineer it and figure out. And this is just one idea out of like 100 that I have for this problem. And with Kamala Harris being in charge, she was tasked with the southern border issue by Biden. The Biden administration didn't even introduce legislation in this space for 3 years, and no, it's just like handing an issue to the Republican base, that it's an easy fix, right? And so investing in these ideas, we do need a sort of wall along the southern border, but not a dumb wall, not a stupid wall like on Game of Thrones, that ice wall,
Yeah.
or the wall of China that couldn't even keep out the Mongol hordes 2,000 years ago. What we need is a smart wall, right? That's an integrated system: air, land, cyber, surveillance from space
I
for
think I,
surveillance
I think
elements.
I think we have to look at a couple other things though, because sometimes your greatest enemy is within. And
Yes.
what I think is one of the worst drug atrocities in the United States is pharmaceutical and OxyContin,
Mm.
and basically legal drug dealers, my opinion. And it did a horrible. I mean, they put out disinformation saying it wasn't horribly addictive when it was, and cause a huge mess in this country. I think we can't look at the border and go, all these criminals, and go, but aren't like 70% of those guns coming from the United States? I think that you look at, when Ellis Island was created, what were we looking at there? We had jobs in this country that we needed filled. And a lot of people here didn't want to fill them. Why don't we have a website? And it's asylum seeker, it is defection for some reason. That would go directly to the FBI or whatever. It wouldn't be regular. And then you'd say, okay, here's the job board, and here's agricultural, here's the hotel business, here's construction business, here's the tech business, and here's medical. Click on here or other, and what are your job specs of your background,
Mm.
and you say, hey, we have all these people in this country who want people to help them. Farmers need help. Construction people need help. So you put that in there and say, hey,
Mm.
do you meet these qualifications? Do you have a criminal background? And you do criminal background checks on them, and you can bring them
Yeah.
in legally with a sponsorship. And then we
Yeah.
streamline this.
Great
And I think
ideas. Great ideas. Yeah.
a big problem, because you have to understand, why are we not doing that right now? Why, you guys? And I look and ask myself, follow the money. And we have a lot of rich white ass. And here's the thing: I don't hate men, but the rich white men in charge are screwed up here, people. And the fact that they have rich white men in Congress, because that's the majority in the Congress, you guys, and they make money off from cheap labor. So when you make coming into this country take 10 years, 20 years long, guess what? You're getting cheap labor for 10 or 20 years. If you made the streamline by a year, guess what? They're going to actually have to start paying a higher price for their people. And they don't want to have to do that. Why is it right now we're going around and we're hauling up all these poor brown people, but we're not hauling in all of the rich white men who knowingly hired illegal help, right? Undocumented people.
And by the
Right.
way, just so you know, for all your listeners, I'm not a rich white man, right? So
Right.
I am
Well,
white, I am
I mean,
straight, right? But
there's
I'm not rich.
there's good people. I'm not saying that there are good people. I
Mm.
was reading about this one billionaire, and he died with just like, I think, $10 million. We're all going 10 million, right? Whatever. It was a
Mm.
small amount of $1 million. He gave it away, and he did it under the radar, and he made sure it was a whole plan that he was not going to go, in the grave with billions. And he gave it away to
Mm.
everybody, hospitals, different places, and a reporter had to look into. So it's not that all rich men are bad. It's the fact that the people in power right now are white and rich, mostly. Look at Congress. Look at these people that are, Elon, Peter Thiel, Zuckerberg, right? It's not you see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
so
it's
I'm not
like
saying,
it's worthy of note right?
Right.
Why is that power concentrated in that demo, right? In that demographic? I'd like to share one more idea. And this goes right to what you were saying about, job boards and stuff for immigrants and stuff. You left one category out, and I want to share this one with you that's in the book. Instead of preventing southern border immigration with the $25 billion medieval wall, we recruit. So on the job board, we recruit 100,000 migrants into the U.S. military, Spanish speaking, and train them as cyber warriors and polygraph examiners, where they serve side by side with their new American brothers and sisters at arms. At the end of their 6-year enlistment, they and their spouses and children are granted permanent U.S. citizenship. Like, these are human resources, right? They just, like my grandparents and my dad and my uncles and aunts, they came through Ellis Island in the 20s and set up a Liccione grocery store in Syracuse, and they contributed to the economy, and they eventually got their citizenship, and here I am, and my kids. So don't forget that. Don't forget we have recruiters for each of the armed services, right? So that's that's um that's another, channel of human resources that are being wasted. We shouldn't look at them all as, like Trump in his elevator speech. They're all murderers and rapists. Yeah, right. Maybe 1% or 2. So we shouldn't ignore um, that they contribute to our economy by and large, and pay taxes and raise their kids. And so that's just one other idea that I have in my book for that. It's my vision and that's the plan. That was month 36 plus, by the way, in the plan of action and milestones. This idea about recruitment but I really like your idea of streamlining it, not and bringing it into the age of the internet instead of what we're doing now. And yeah, why aren't we advertising uh, and making it easier and more efficient? Because the immigration's in essence is all about capacity and throughput, right? Do we
Right. And
have the
if you
yeah.
have the website, you have sponsorship. And I think you as
Mm,
the employees, hey, you could actually get maybe more people that were, asking for to come into this country. Our birth rate is going down, not up, and it's more expensive, right? I go to a lot
mm,
of different things that we could do, like federalize the grid. We'd pay $8 a month versus 140, right? With these upgrades that are coming up. Like there's a lot of things that we could do to make everyday people their lives better. But the issue is we don't have everyday people in Congress, and that's why I go to the fact that we we do need more people in Congress. Why isn't more people don't go in Congress? Because it's expensive as shit to get in there, and most people don't have the money to do so. And
yeah.
you either have to like kiss ass to the rich people and then be in their pocket, and then you're not taking care of the people. So that's why I go to my whole thing. I really feel like we need $5 every tax season to go to $3 for one for the Republicans, one for the Democrats, one for the independents. That is the only political funding that you get. Now you can have a line item on there that if you want to give an extra, I don't know, $100 or $1,000, fine, but those are going to be split between those three parties, and that the additional $2 is for independent news that cannot be bought, that cannot be gagged, right? Ellison, go fuck yourself. Okay. Like it will be independent news and you can't defund it. But this $3 system, you guys, what does that free up? Well, first off, if you get into Congress, you're not spending 50 to 75% of your time kissing someone else's ass, being in their pocket, voting the way they want. You are
Yeah, that's
100%
the
of the
most
time.
that's the thing the most distasteful part of running when I was running in 24 and 23 is um I'm not really good at begging for money. It isn't my thing. And I ended up having to self-fund my campaign and out of my life savings, maybe 99% through a series of my own loans. And I will say that I'll say this one thing, and it'll sound like whining, but the Democratic Party in Pinellas County in Florida torched me in what was a 5-way primary. They smeared me. They called me a man of moral turpitude to the Tampa Bay Times, and once that got published, it was a death sentence basically. And so I decided to to pr- to um to continue and fight and self-fund my campaign. And to the extent I could, I can't do that again this time. I just can't do it again. I don't have the resources. So if I'm going to run again, I can't be soliciting campaign donations. I'll get in trouble with the FEC and the Trump DOJ. But anyway, I just let you know that I'm close to making that decision, but it depends on certain things, right? So
There are places that you can go to, like run for something.net, right? You guys should try to get into these places. But I just want to give you a statistic. And this statistic was, I think I read it like 8 years ago. Because someone on here said just stop having kids or whatever, and then you could afford to be in elections or whatever. But here's the thing. Back then, again, this is something like 8 years ago, $175,000 to run for. Now that's not federal. That's just your local state Congress. 175,000. And that maybe you lose. And then you just lost 175,000. How many normal people have that kind of money that you can just lose and not get anything out of it? So it's not tenable for the average person, and therefore it's the people aren't representing the people, and that's why after 30 years of, as Talarico says, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. We've been on the menu for over 30 years because it's not been affordable for us to run for our Congress at the state and federal level, and they have been taking more and more and more and more from us. So we the people need to get into these positions. And so I run for something.net is really good. They can direct you to different places. They help people who are under the age of 40 run for whatever. If you're over the age of 40, they have affiliate organizations that you can tag up with, and they are trying to get Democrats out there. And I'm here to tell you, 2026 is going to be the year of the dark horse, people. Everyone is fed up with where we're at, and they want something different. So this is the year to do something different. And you know, be wary of the Republicans that know their party is goddamn dead. And so now some of them are trying to run as Democrats. You do have to read and look up your candidates, okay? Especially at the state and federal Congress level. You need to know what those people are about. So, look into that. I know that Dunn in Texas, right? And there's Yaz in Pennsylvania and Bloomberg in New York. These are some billionaires who are putting money into national campaigns, other places. There's this Rogers running in Michigan, you guys. He is Dunn affiliated. These are the billionaires. This is where we are right now is because of assholes like this. So don't vote for them, right? And get that information out there to other people. Okay, what? Someone said, yes, you do, AC. I don't know about what. I got to read here.
Yeah, you know what? My favorite congresswoman or person is AOC, right? But AOC, she's a firebrand. I agree with her. I agree with maybe I don't know. I agree with her positions. Um, but she's almost like the lone one. Maybe Jasmine Crockett's right up there too. But I'd like to be in Congress working alongside with AOC, Jasmine Crockett, because the one thing we don't have in Congress, well, it's a guy like me that can go into and lobby these Republican, these flippable Republican congressmen and senators and get the votes we need to impeach, remove, and convict as a sort of a first thing, to fund anti-child sex trafficking defense budgets and intelligence budgets. These things that, like, my number one platform in 2024, and it's the same thing today, is interdicting and ending child sex trafficking and ending mass school shootings by the end of the decade without having to suspend the Second Amendment rights of anybody. There's a way to do it, and a way to do it that'll get the NRA to be falling all over themselves to help pay for it. And that's actually a sort of a separate discussion on an issue, but putting kids first above all else. Kids first above all else. I'm from the tail end of the baby boom generation, and we failed, right? We failed to defend our democracy. We got fat and lazy. I got a little fat, but I'm not lazy. We need, this is the fight of our generation, right? And the younger generations, but particularly the baby boom generation, because we're the ones that uh, that that go out and vote, right, in high percentages, retirees, Social Security folks living on fixed income, and plus the rich folks from my generation. And this is a call to action for my generation to put kids first above all else. In our policies, we don't do a child impact study, right, when we implement new policies, like we do for the environment under previous administrations. So that's top of my mind and top priority for me. And I'm for the traditional democratic values, social, democratic social values, Roe standard abortion rights, yes. Um, 14th Amendment advocate, and all that. I've marched for 14th Amendment, equal protection rights for all. And so but I don't spend a lot of time talking about all those things because democracy is on the brink right now, and
Yeah.
if we don't save democracy, we're not gonna be able to do anything else,
And
right?
I'm
So
scared for there's this one, it's HR 7114, I believe it is. And basically what they want to do is pass a law saying that people can get money
yeah,
for snitching on their neighbors.
yeah, like they did in Texas with the abortion bounties.
Yep.
Yeah,
They are basically about that's how I've said it on other lives that you can get $100,000 if you rape a little girl or a woman and you rape them, and let's say they're 12, and they didn't want to have this child. They kept their legs shut. You didn't keep it zipped up, and then they're forced to have a child, even if it might hurt their body, or let's say it could kill you because there are miscarriages and other things, and they're not being allowed health care. That if at any point in time for 6 years after you get an abortion, if any of their family members, not just the rapist, they can sue you for $100,000. And so
yes.
that it's basically let's just rape women and we can, collect $100,000 bounty.
Well,
I
speaking
mean,
of abortion rights, let me talk about the way I look at this as an engineer. Um, if the mission is to reduce the number of abortions in America, forget about how for a minute. Um, First, what is the right thing to do? And I think the right thing to do, that's actually a righteous mission. It doesn't necessarily violate anybody's rights to reduce the number of abortions in America, but we need more kids. We need families. I'm for reducing the number of abortions in America without violating the civil rights of our women, right, and our children. And so if that's the goal, um, and if I had $100 billion and I could reduce the number of abortions in America by 5% year over year for the next 10 years, what would I do with that money as an engineer? How would I architect that system that can deliver those goals over those milestones over those periods of times? And just so, for example, for lower income women that can't afford another child, um, we invest in what she needs to bring that child into the world and to raise that child, right? Republicans um, don't sort of think that way. It's all about conceptions that is when life begins, and then we forget about the upbringing of the kid um, after birth, right? After the child's born, and so that's just. And then how many women experience miscarriages? Right? Are we investing in research and development on figuring out and reducing the number of miscarriages for women
I,
that
I
do
just want
want
to,
to?
I want to throw out some information, just some general information.
Yeah,
Um, One, under Democrats, there's less abortions because they're doing, as you're saying, they're investing in, okay, instead of Republicans taking away money for, what is it? It's almost $1 trillion in December 2028 for Medicaid. And what is Medicaid? Something like 45% of that is delivering the babies and
yeah,
healthcare for poor children. So they don't
yeah,
want to help you deliver the children. They don't want to help you give you healthcare for the children. And then they're reducing the food aid to feed the children. So they don't want to feed or give
yeah.
healthcare to them. So they don't give a fuck about life. They want to control women and force them into situations where they have to have a man who can then beat them or rape them or whatever because they have to have them to stay with them. I consider them Neanderthals. Under Democrats, there is less abortions because they actually help provide social safety nets of helping to feed them and giving them healthcare. And then when they do that, isn't it crazy? More women decide to have children because they can responsibly take care of them. Holy shit. What a concept. And I
It's
think
not
there's
like rocket. It's
education.
not rocket science. It's
Right.
not right. It's math. It's math, and it's engineering, and it's delivering a system of support and funding with the goal of bringing more children into this world um, and um, and raising healthy kids and all that. And I disagree with you on they don't give a shit about life. I come from a Catholic family. devout Catholics. I'd call myself a fallen Catholic for reasons that I don't support institutions that cover up child abuse. But I still believe in Jesus' teachings, and I know the people that in my family that are firm believers in this. They go out and they go out in public and with their signs and protest, not at clinics, but on street corners and stuff. And they do truly believe about life. So I wouldn't lump everybody into the same
Well,
bucket.
I think there's a difference between forcing a birth and supporting the life afterwards.
Yeah,
And what I
exactly.
really
Yeah,
see over and over and over with the Republican Party is they really want to force that birth, but then they don't want to support the child after. And
yeah.
then they
What's
want to
that?
shame the
Yeah,
mom because she can't take care of it, and she didn't want to have it in the first place because she couldn't take care of it. Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah,
anyways, but my
yeah.
other
I
part
do.
of this is education, and there's a huge, huge hole in education of religious people that have been indoctrinated and they don't understand reality. And the reality is that a lot of women. Why is it said that abortion is healthcare? Because you have a lot of the right saying, "Oh, well, they want to murder all these children and they just love murdering." Okay, you have to look at what healthcare is. And I have said this on other things, but we're talking about it now. Okay, I equate, and you have to equate it to men because otherwise a lot of them don't give a shit. I'm not saying you, but I'm just saying there's a good chunk that go, right? Well, when you have an aneurysm as a man, that is a blood vessel. That is like, think of it like a tube, right? PVC pipe. Well, I mean, you're looking at scans on people, you can see where a portion is ballooned out, okay, like a little bubble, half a bubble. That is a weakened vessel. And if you don't put a stent, or it looks like a Chinese finger trap, they're called a stent.
Yeah, yeah,
You put
yeah.
that
My
in there,
dad got that. My dad got
right?
that. Yeah.
And that prevents that blood vessel from bursting, having a bleed out, and possibly dying. You can have these anywhere. You can have them in your thoracic cavity, in your stomach kind of area, or in your brain, or wherever. Okay. And when you see it, you give man health care in every single state, and we don't shame a man for it. But if a woman has an ectopic pregnancy, okay, so a lot of times the egg is fertilized in the fallopian tube. Think of it like a PVC pipe. Okay. And then it's supposed to implant in the uterus, which is like a balloon, and it expands. If it implants in that fallopian tube, 100% of the time it will blow up like an
Yeah.
aneurysm.
Mhm.
It will 100% of the time not be a viable pregnancy. 100% of the time. So it's very equatable to an aneurysm. But women in these states now that have all these restrictions, they're not allowed health care. And it would be exactly equivalent to seeing an aneurysm in a man and doing nothing and just
Yeah,
letting it blow up and possibly dying.
I think Texas is the worst offender in that department, right? Women have to flee the state, right?
Well,
And doctors are being threatened with jail time, right? It's
There's
just
it's not just Texas. It's not just Texas. It's Florida. I mean, there was actually a woman, and see, and I'm gonna say this. It was a woman Republican representative, and she signed on to this abortion ban. And then she herself had an ectopic pregnancy, realized that she could die. Well,
mm,
she needed health care. So she called the governor, and the governor gave a dispensation to her so she didn't have to die. And then she didn't give a shit about the Democrats. Well, it's the Democrats. You were Republican. You voted for it. You're a lying bitch. And the fact that you were going to condemn other women to death, and that's not pro-life. That isn't going to be a pregnancy. That's
I tell you
you don't
what,
care about
Audrey,
the women. And then
Anna Paulina Luna is the worst offender in that department here. She's my congresswoman that I'm trying to unseat. I tried in 2024. Um, we're a million people in Pinellas County. We're the Pinellas Million, I call it. And Anna Paulina Luna has a constituency of three: Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, and what I call the vile ghost of Jeffrey Epstein. She voted no on discharge. She wouldn't sign the discharge petition with her with Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene did. She voted no on bringing it to the House floor until Trump said she could vote yes. Right. And I call her the MAGA princess of chaos. She's like taken Ivanka's position as Trump's princess, basically, and all she does is parrot, you know, the Trump party line. And enough about that.
well, what they want to do with this is they want to have women actually have kits, and they want you if you're miscarrying, you have to put it in the kit, and they have to investigate you. And I'm going to bring this up too. When you're talking about look at the education, look at okay, you have to look at men because that's always left out of the equation. And men's poor sperm quality causes a lot of what's called preeclampsia or unknown high blood pressure in women. It also causes a lot of the placental abruptions, which will lead to a miscarriage. It's
I
also
didn't
the
know that.
genetic
I didn't know
quality.
that.
It
Really?
also
That's
goes
true?
to, yes, it also goes to the fetal defects because it's half of the genetic code is from the male. And so are we going to be then investigating men? And we need to be bringing this up because none of these assholes are bringing it up. And the only way that they are going to give a shit about us, ladies, is if we make it about them because it's always about them. And I'm not hating on you, John, but I'm saying that this is what this country has been. And it's not just our country, a lot of other countries, and they blame it all on the women. And they need to understand that they are part of the equation. And if we are going to be investigated and thrown in prison for quote unquote abuse to a corpse, which is just a miscarriage, is trauma to us that we didn't even create, that we are going to bring in men and we are going to put you in prisons. And then when we do that, then all of a sudden, oh, maybe we don't need these investigations. And then they leave us alone. And that's really the only way. The only reason we got the right to vote is because, oh, they needed the votes to get something done. So then they wanted us to vote. So you have to bring it about men so that we can get our own damn rights. I'm not mad at you, John, and I'm not blaming all men, but I'm just saying that's women understand this. Like that's what you have to do. And so we need to say, we spend how many times, like 3 times the amount of money on erection dysfunction research in this country than we do on maternal death rates. That getting it up means way more, and we're going to spend way more than actually saving the lives of women. And then we're going to say it's all pro-life. Sorry, I'm calling it out as bullshit. So, if what you want is you need to understand there's a huge education hole in this country, and, it's indoctrination over education, and that you need to understand that a lot of these pregnancies, when you have a brain outside of the fetal like body, it is not going to be viable. And you're going to force these women to give birth to something that is going to then die. And that you have this, it's going to happen. I had a week where I had a miscarriage where it took me
Oh,
a week to get
sorry.
a DNC. I had multiple miscarriages, and a lot of women do. And in the first couple weeks, I had a couple, and it wasn't a big deal. But when you're at 10 weeks and you are so excited to hear that heartbeat, and there's no heartbeat, and then it's this lump in your throat, and for the week that I had to wait for my DNC, it's this black period of it was horrible, and you can't mourn and you can't get over it until I had the DNC, then I could mourn and get past it. And I just wanted it over with. And for these women to go through months or to actually have to give birth to something that's going to die or something that's going to be dead anyways, is horribly traumatic. And because there's a lack of education to understand that when the kidneys aren't viable, it can kill you and it won't be a viable pregnancy. When the lungs aren't fully developed, which you won't know till the third trimester. And so you have to have an abortion because if you don't, you're going to give birth and you're going to watch for 3 minutes this child suffocate to death. That it's just trauma, and that there isn't this education to understand abortion is healthcare. It prevents us from dying. It's that there is this huge hole that we need to be talking about it because people don't understand that. And I don't think you understand that they actually got rid of the women's health initiative in this country, in this regime in the first few months. And what was that? That was so that we could have we're taxpayers too, have part of the health research done in this country on women that until
Right.
about 25 years ago, men. How do you look at women's menopause issues? How do you look at postpartum depression? How do you look at lactating problems on a goddamn man? You don't. And that actually heart attacks, which by the way, cardiovascular disease is the number one killer of men and women, that the symptoms were different in women than men until we started doing research on women. And they got rid of that because we have to spend 3 times that amount of money on how to get a man's dick hard. I'm sorry, like I went on a rant, but like we
I love
we
the
we don't
rant. I love the rant, and I've learned a couple of new things. And by the way, I'm not afraid to ask and show that I'm ignorant about this, but what is the DNC that you're talking about?
well, like
It-
the Democratic Party. I'm sorry if I
oh, oh,
mispronounced the acronym, but I'm not
I
I'm not
no,
trying to make it.
I thought it was some like, pill or thing that your medical thing. So okay,
Yeah, and more women, African American women die than white women, and we need to look at that as well. I'm not trying to say that, and I absolutely agree. Someone else in this chat had said something about we need to do preventative things to reduce crime. And you guys, just some throwouts in areas where you have, let's say, plasma centers where you can go get money. 20% drop in crime because people have a legal way to make money to get food, so they don't have to commit the crime. Where you plant 10% more trees, there's 12% less crime. There is, where you invest in the communities, and you look at Brandon Johnson in Chicago, and he has reduced like the crime rate and homicide rates by like 25 and 30%. These are not small, like 5% numbers, you guys. And what did he do? He invested in the communities. If you actually feed children, guess what? They actually learn way more. That's like one of the biggest deals about helping
Mhm.
children in schools is making sure they're fed. And what are these assholes doing? They're taking
They're
away
cutting
money
it.
to feed children.
They're, they're cutting it. Yep.
So, they don't care about the life. You can say all you want, but they don't, because they don't want to invest in the children afterwards. They love the soldier, hate the vet. Love the fetus, hate the baby. Like it's you're a liability on a balance sheet, and we need to invest in our communities to reduce the crime rates. I think if Republicans were actually about small and medium businesses, which help the communities, they would fare a lot better. But really, what the Republican Party has become is just giant corporations, and that's all they really invest in. And then they lie about everything else. I
Mhm.
mean, that's what I see of the Republican politicians that get in power are all about. And they don't know about women's health care, and they don't understand that, or if they do understand that it can kill us, they don't give a shit. They just want to control
Mhm.
us. When you have 3,000 rape kits down in Texas and they're not, testing them, but they have the money and the staff to go, oh, here's an abusive partner. My woman left and she's pregnant. And so I want to track where she's at and I want to stalk her. And she left the state and went to Illinois to get health care. And then investigated her, interrogated her, used the flock system, security systems to find her. Uh,
Mhm.
but what did they do? Did they go after the abusive partner? No. Are they testing
Mhm.
the 3,000 rape kits? No. But we can stalk and we can, interrogate women who leave the state because, Texas, states' rights people, left to go to a different state where you have a right to do that. And then we're trying to grill her about it. Like, this is about controlling women. And that's just a sad fact of it. I'm sorry, but like we need to invest in our communities. We need to invest in women's health care. And when you do those things, here's the thing with men that they need to understand. This whole loneliness epidemic, I feel like there's three or four things in that. One, um, we took all of our manufacturing jobs, all our good jobs, and we shipped them aside. And then, what's one of the main things a woman is a criteria for getting a man? Well, you have to financially be stable so that if we were to have a kid, we can afford to raise that child. And so if you can't find a good job, then you're kind of hard up to find a woman, and I feel for men on that regard. I really do. Um, then there's the other part of this where we're not, we're on computers all the time, this next generation, and so they're not learning the social skills that they need to, and the patriarchy, which is, in Denmark, they're like, your best quality man is our standard man. Like you're supposed to help with childcare. You're supposed to help with, cleaning the house. And just men, all of them do that. And here in America, that's like, oh my God, he helped with the housework. He helped with the child rearing. Oh my God. Right. And that's the patriarchy hurting men. But the other
Yeah,
part of this is,
that's the that's like the minimum we should be doing. We raised three kids, and they're all out there, productive in society. Very proud of them. And I'd like to take a minute to talk about mass school shootings, if I can, if we have time. Um, as an engineer, I look at that problem as a system. We have as a hack system. We have this system that that is delivering a weapon system, which is the melding of a human being with a weapon, AR-15 or whatever, with 5 mags in his jacket, into the classroom and a bullet into the body of a child. So if you back up from the firing of the bullet, the 100 bullets in a classroom full of people, and you go all the way back, in what I call the mass school shooter supply chain, right? What's stage 0? If you could identify the first, like, key indicator in that mass school shooter supply chain that this might be a mass shooting waiting to happen, right? And it starts with, the mental health detection, crisis intervention, counselors in schools to detect and interdict at that earliest of early stages, and prevent it, right? Because if you can prevent it there, that's like a really good investment, a return on investment. And if you go down through, getting access to the weapon, like in the Uvalde massacre. I've analyzed these mass school shootings, and I've deconstructed the whole supply chain. And for each stage of the supply chain, and each transition between stage, you can interdict with a different kind of solution or a tactic, and all the way up until the classroom and entry into the school and security in the schools, so that if the shooter does get onto the school grounds like Uvalde, you know what, you know how there were no ballistic shields inside the school that were prepositioned like sort of fire extinguishers in a way, um, that the kids could hide behind. The doors weren't hardened to resist an AR-15 NATO bullet. Um, None of the in the principal's office and the vice principal's office, there's no prepositioned gear. There's no ability to detect like with video cameras on poles out in the school grounds. So there's all things. Their drone technology, right? Quick response. You know how long it took for the first shielded armed police officer to get into that school? It was like 45 minutes after first detection and alert. It took them that long to get the first ballistic shield inside the school, right? Because so this was like something as an engineer, it's a long topic to talk about this, but I've got a solution to this, and it doesn't require seizing everybody's AR-15s necessarily, unless they're at a high risk of becoming mass shooter that you can detect early, perhaps. So the red flag laws um, are good, right? Those are only temporary separation of a potential, harm to self or others situation from access to guns in their house, and there's a due process for restoration of those rights. I know this happened up in Maryland where I lived. I was living there while when the first red flag law went into place. And so, anyway, I just want to talk about that. I've got a solution and a methodology that will, I believe, deliver a massive reduction in mass school shooting deaths before the end of this decade.
What is it?
And well, I'm talking about it. It's a system that interdicts these different stages of the mass school shooting supply chain with tailored solutions. So, how much are we investing in hardening the school entryway doors? So when a mass school shooter is detected early, they can't fire their way into the building. Boom. Then the police get more time to get there and respond. Take them out. So that's the end of the supply chain when they get on the and then there's the early stage of the supply chain where the investing in the mental health and counselors and stuff.
I
So
think
that
that mental health is a big deal that we're not doing. And since Reagan and he just dumped everyone in medical facilities on to be
yeah.
homeless is an issue. Like we're very understaffed that way. And I think, in other countries, just going back to the whole there's a few things. I'm not going to be completely linear about this. One is someone on here was saying a DNC and abortion. A DNC is when um, it's a failed pregnancy. There is
Oh,
nothing
okay.
alive there. And then they take that out so that it doesn't become necrotic and kill the woman with infection.
Right.
An
Okay.
abortion is that it is some kind of life. Understand at 6 weeks, there is no heart. At 6 weeks, there is not a heart. It's cardiac tissue, and there's just enough that it is beating. There isn't a fully developed heart till I think 14 weeks. And then around 24 weeks, you have enough of a brain that there is some neural connections going on. But that is an abortion. A DNC is when it is failed, and they want to clean out the tissue so that it doesn't
Yeah.
become necrotic and kill the woman. So there's been
Okay.
a discussion on here about this. So, and then the other thing is what I was trying to finish up with the male loneliness epidemic is that I brought up how they don't have a job, and they've been set up in a system that doesn't. Okay, and I feel for them, and there's not
Mhm.
teaching them the right way, which is mental health, which is part of this, and the patriarchy. But the last thing is that when you do things like DOPS and you take away our ability to have an abortionist healthcare, that and I seen a woman, it was in September, and she was bawling. She was married, she wanted a child, she had a son, she had an ectopic pregnancy, she's being told she's not gonna be able to get healthcare. And she's bawling because she's like, I could die. It could happen in the middle of the night and I will bleed out and die. And I don't want to die. And yet not given healthcare. Or another woman who was having a placental abruption, she was having God's abortion. She was having a miscarriage. And she was given a bucket. because she was bleeding out so much and clotting. And they said, we can't help you because there's still bleeding, something there. So you have to, for the next week, just, when your organs start failing, that means you're dying. Come back in and maybe we can help you. That when you have to make a choice every time you have sex, I could die. Would men have as much sex if every time they had sex, they could die? I don't think so. And women aren't. And so they're keeping their legs closed and they're just not having sex with men. And they're getting a toy and they're going off on their own. And then the men are pissed off going, well, they're not wanting to be with me. That's right, because we don't want to die. And you're not seeing us as healthcare and you're not seeing us as equal. And you're sitting here debating the 19th Amendment. That has been brought on by themselves. And they need to look in the mirror about that. But in this country, when you're talking about the guns, when we're talking about the drug epidemic, is because we do not have good social safety nets. We don't have mental health care as a priority in this country at all. When you're looking at whether that's guns or whether you're looking at pregnancy rates, look at Sweden, look at Norway, look at Denmark. In these countries, guys, they are talking to their preschoolers and first graders about love. And what do I mean? What is a good friend? How can you show that you really care about someone? And they're investing in the EQ, which is emotional quotient of their children. And it is more indicative of success later in life, their EQ, than their IQ, which is intelligence. They're investing in things like using books because screen time shows that has lower math scores, has lower, I think it was reading or science scores, and it also increases anxiety. So they're going to books, they're doing mental health for their children, they're investing in, talking about their emotions with both men for the little boys so that they understand that they can talk about their emotions and then not teaching the patriarchy to them. And then they're less angry. And if you think if you're less angry, you're going to use less guns. I think so. But all this requires taxing the rich so that we can have these social safety nets. And you know what I mean? And making them pay a living wage. Go look at Australia. And for all these people who tell you, well, then a burger will be $35. No one will be able to afford anything if we have a living wage. You guys, they doubled or tripled their wages down there, and no, that did not happen. It is propaganda by the rich that they don't want to have to pay living wages. Now, I'm not saying the small and medium businesses where you have like 5 or 10 people, you may not be able to do as much, but when you have these larger corporations, absolutely you could do that. And I think we look at these things, and if we put social safety nets in and we teach our children mental health at a younger age, guess what they have less of over there? Gun violence. Because they're teaching their young, right? Like they're investing into them, not just. And here we're having a problem just getting our government to feed the children, let alone have any kind of mental health, right? So look at Russia. They have huge amounts of women violence, right? They can't give their people a lot of food. They can't give their people a lot of healthcare. But what they're giving their men is the ability to beat the shit out of their women anytime they want. And so that's the trade-off. They want to use us as cannon fodder. That's what they've done in Russia. That's what they're looking here, right? I mean, they're taking away all of our social safety nets, but they're saying, oh, domestic violence, we're going to defund that for women. They have done that. Go look into it. It's already been done. They take away women's healthcare initiatives to look into research to helping our healthcare. But we're going to spend 3 times the amount of money on trying to get their dicks hard because that's the priority. I don't mean to be mean to men. I'm just telling you at a government level, this is the reality. And that we have to take a good hard look at ourselves about the racism in this country and the sexism in this country so that we understand what the problems are so that we can find solutions. And I think we're going to have a lot less gun violence when people can feed their families, when people can have health care for their families, when they can have a social safety net where they feel safe. Maybe they have less guns. I mean, it's the same reason where if you give health care and food, Democratic, I'm not shitting you. Go look at the statistics. I'm in a cold grudge. Democrats, when you have Democrats in charge, abortions lower. They're always lower because women can afford to have those children. There will always be abortion. And this is something all religious people need to understand. In Rome, there was so many abortions because there was a herb that could induce an abortion. That plant no longer exists because it went extinct because it was so used. Abortions have always been around. It's always been how safe they are. And women have resorted to using coat hangers and other things. Okay? I don't want there to be women dying. And I also need to have this education moment with people to understand that there's a large chunk of these abortions happening because of healthcare. Because when the kidneys aren't developed, that is something where the woman is having to use her circulatory system and her organs to process all the additional toxins. And as that grows, it can kill her. it will not lead to a viable outcome, and it can kill her. That is abortion is healthcare. When the brain is outside the skull, there is a ton of different birth defects that will lead to something that's not viable outside the womb. Okay, and will kill her. Why are we forcing these women to go through the entire pregnancy to have to give birth? It's physically traumatic. It's horrific, emotionally horrific to make a woman 4 or 5 months to know it is not going to work, that they're going to have to see it die upon birth, or it's going to be born dead, and disfigured. Why? Why are you forcing them into that trauma? Because a lot of these religious people don't realize that's the reality. And I don't think we should force women to, I had a conversation recently with this, and he was actually a religious leader of his church. And he's like, well, don't you feel sad if that ectopic pregnancy, there should be a sadness felt about that. I'm like, don't you feel sad when women are slaughtered, when they're murdered, when they're killed, when they are, refused an abortion and they die? Is there any sadness about that? I don't see any sadness by the religious people about all the women dying. Go look at Texas. Seriously, go look into Google Texas. What are the sepsis and maternal death rates since Dobbs? And it's not 5% higher or 50% higher or 75% higher or 100% higher. This is over 200% higher. Go look into that. But I don't see any sadness felt for us dying. And when we keep it closed and we don't want to give anything, well, then the women are just frigid and we don't want to die. Like, I don't know how to put that through so your thick skull can figure that out. And I'm not talking to you, John. I'm just like, I'm upset
Well,
about.
I'm glad you're sharing this because these are concepts I haven't considered before. So I really appreciate you. You have a lot of this stuff, and every time I hear you, I learn something new. So I appreciate that.
So I just think our priorities need to shift from being, so much more money spent to get a guy's dick hard to let's like not have as much women dying in birth and right after birth. And how can we take care of the children once we have them? And I think once you do that and you actually put the social safety nets in, automatically women will have more children because we can afford to responsibly do so. But I think we need to
Yep.
invest in the country.
More kids, more healthy kids, mental health and physical health, fewer miscarriages, fewer deaths, in childbirth and all that. So yeah, I'm right with you on that. Would you like to spend a few minutes? I don't know if we have time. A few minutes talking about election integrity.
Yes, let's do it.
All right. So, um, I happen to be the only person in America, and I'm a Democrat, especially the only Democrat in America that is suing candidate that is suing Donald Trump and the bond and the Trump Bondi DOJ and Ron DeSantis here in Florida for election records wire fraud in the 2024 election, as well as in my mayoral election where I ran for Gulfport mayor in March last year. And so if you go Google Liccione versus Trump, you can go up onto ScribD and download these lawsuit filings. And I'm fighting that fight. I've also filed. So I'm on offense. I'm saying I'm suing Trump for violating his own election integrity executive order that he signed in March last year. 2 weeks or 3 weeks after he signed that, I filed a Ketam whistleblower lawsuit in D.C. The Liccione versus it was the United States ex-relator John Liccione versus VR Systems, the election management software vendor here in Florida and used in other swing states for this election fraud. And it was a whistleblower complaint that got dismissed because I couldn't find a freaking lawyer. I wrote, I did all the research myself on pro se, and in a whistleblower complaint like that, it was also a RICO count in there, a RICO count for election fraud. I didn't realize it, but if I had a lawyer on the hook who was willing to take my case, a whistleblower specialist, a key term False Claims Act lawyer. And he was ready to go. He said, I just got to call the DOJ, which at the time up in D.C., which is U.S. attorney was Ed Martin, and now it's Janine Pirro. And so I need to discuss this with them, because when you file these kind of complaints, the DOJ, it goes under seal, and the DOJ has 60 days under seal to investigate, which they're required to do under the False Claims Act statute, and make a declination or take in the case decision. And because I'm suing on behalf of the United States, right, of America. And the Trump basically ordered the DOJ, ordered Bondi to bury my lawsuit and not respond to my lawyer at all. So my lawyer bailed on me, and I had to take the case forward alone as best I could. And it's been dismissed by Judge Amit Mehta, who's an Obama judge up in D.C. But I'm preparing to refile, and I've also filed a Public Records Violation Act enforcement action down here against the Sixth Circuit State Attorney, Bruce Bartlett, because they've literally erased the name VR Systems, the election software contractor, out of every document that that has to do with my election integrity fraud criminal complaint I filed down here. So there's this corrupt RICO enterprise that starts up at Trump, goes down through the DOJ at the federal level, through the U.S. attorneys, down to DeSantis, from DeSantis to the Secretary of State, Cord Bird in Florida, down to all 67 county supervisor elections here in Florida. It's this corrupt RICO, three-tier RICO enterprise. And I'm fighting this fight alone so far. So I've been trying to raise funds on my Substack feed, The Bleed by John Liccione. I got my, my Zelle and my PayPal links there. So if anybody wants to help me continue this offensive warfare fight, which the Democratic Party apparently has no interest in helping me prosecute it.
Yeah, I don't understand that. It makes me really feel like it's just two sides of the same coin. Like, it really, even at that level, we can't sue for fair fucking elections. Like, holy
I know,
shit.
right?
So the ACL, have you partnered with like maybe the ACL or one of those like organizations? I feel like that would be a really good fit for you. And I really feel it is a national problem. It isn't like, oh, I'm trying to get money for me. It's, I want fairness in our elections, which should be a national problem. I also think that there should be an organization, like I would deep AI and say, what organizations help with legal fees for at the federal level making fair elections? I think that there's probably an organization that you could, partner with that would help you pay for part of that.
Yeah, as far as in the Substack community, I've reached out to Mark Elias. He's ignoring me, which ticks me off. I've reached out to the election. I'm connecting to the Election Truth Alliance, which is suing in Pennsylvania
Yes.
for
Yeah.
election fraud. They're great. I'm partnered with, I wouldn't say partnered, but we collaborate with this woman, Allison Green, who's on Substack, is It's Up to Us. And write that down, everybody, because she's, I think, the best election integrity investigator and storyteller. She's better than me at it. I tell my story through lawsuits now. But go to It's Up to Us and read her election integrity series, because what she's uncovered is my election integrity lawsuits are sort of down here in the vote by mail space, right? Vote by mail election records fraud. Then she's up here at the other end of the vote supply chain. She's actually, it's the other end of the vote supply chain, where 1 in 10 registered voters, Democratic voters, are being erased from the voter rolls inside the hacked voter registration system, which is VR systems. So we're connected through the VR systems common denominator. She's got her series, which that's public opinion stuff. She's gone out and actually interviewed with Nathan, the guy that is at Election Truth Alliance. They've gone out in St. Lucie County, Florida, and they've actually interviewed voters that they see these anomalies in the precinct voting data. And they've gone out in the field and they've interviewed people. Hey, we've got this address is somebody voted in this address, but the house was it was under construction, so nobody lived there yet. Do you know these people that voted at this address? And they're like, no, we don't know these people, right? So how does that happen? Well, if you can hack the bits, right? In the voter registration and mail ballot processing system, or and all that, and you nothing else matters if you control the IT, and you could flip voter registrations from Republican to Democrat, or you disappear one and then erase your tracks. Um, this has to be a lane that we have to fight on too. We can't. It doesn't matter how many door knockings we do. It doesn't. If Elon Musk or Vladimir Putin could come over Starlink with his direct to cell satellite network that went live during the 2024 election, and can flip and can hack into the vote tabulators, Dominion vote tabulators, or what have you, ESS or VR systems, and they can delete one of every 10 Democratic voters, or add Republican voters in a way. And the key number in her story is this, and the ETA story is 60% voter turn. I think it's 60, or maybe it's 30%. I can't remember the percentage, but once any precinct passes a voter turnout threshold or percentage, you see this. The statistics look like it's a known anomaly that is indicative of fraud that's going on. It's manipulation, it's algorithmic manipulation that kicks in at a voter turnout percentage, and we're seeing that here in Florida. We're seeing it in Pennsylvania and New York, where 0 votes for Kamala Harris in a blue district or blue precinct, and it's the same. It's a national problem. It's everywhere. It's also in Tennessee. There's a case in Tennessee, I think. So, in the election integrity front, I've actually just founded a new tech startup called Ballotir. That's Ballotir, Ballotir.com. And you can go on that website and subscribe to it. It's just a one-page website for now with subscriptions. But the mission of Ballotir is we make elections tenable. That is the slogan and the mission. And I'm the market research phase there and the product development phase. So defending our elections and being able to defend our elections and prove that the election was done with integrity or not through records, through the artifacts, both before the election is held, in the lead up to the election day itself, and post-election. There's millions and millions of election records artifacts that are generated by these systems. And no one's really figured out yet how to provide early warning of anomalies before an election that you can interdict before you get to the election, or cross or trans election, right? Cross election from 2022 to 2024 to 2026, and look at the trends. So I'm focused on that, solving that bringing that solution to market. And I'm going to be going out and pitching that to all the supervisor elections in the state in Florida when I have my first viable product version of that. So that's another project I'm undertaking. And I brought these tech companies to market before in other spaces like disaster recovery and mobile device management. So I've done this before, but now I'm doing it in the election domain. So, thanks for giving me the time to talk about that. Appreciate it.
No, I thank you for coming on here today. I think, here's the deal, you guys. What John has done, if all of us had done a quarter of the work he'd done towards fighting for our democracy, would we be here right now? Probably not. So I thank you, John, for what you're doing and trying to put in. I honestly, ACLU or some of these other, I just feel like there's specifically for free elections. It's not even about you. It's for the nation. That there wouldn't be some organizations that could help you fund that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I haven't had
fight seems to
success yet in that space. I could use some help actually in that space.
So I'll look up and see if I can't send you some orgs. If any of you guys know any information, if you could send that on to him, that would be great. But this is what it takes is everyone taking some action, and everyone takes a different action, right? Different people have different wheelhouses. So in
Right.
your
Right.
wheelhouse, what can you do to help protect our elections, or what can you do in your local community to make, a co-op business, right? Or whatever, like whatever your wheelhouse is, do something. If you're a singer, just understand, you guys, right now we have a lot of our news isn't news. It's state-sponsored bullshit. But we have country western singers, several that have come out, and they are singing against ice you guys, and this is making a huge impact in the red areas. Like it's cutting through. So, and that's singing, right? Like,
Oh, hey,
don't
hey,
don't
singing! You got to promo my comedic political satire music that I have on my Substack feed. Uh, my most
go for
popular
it.
one is called "The President Who Will Never Return," and I play guitar and I sing and I write. It's my speech, part of my speech, my creativity, my art. It's how I communicate, just like you're saying. And the president that will never return is a riff on an old Kingston Trio song called "Charlie on the MTA." He may ride forever neath the streets of Boston. He's the man who'll never return. And it was a political song for a mayoral race in Boston back in, I don't know, the 50s maybe, where this guy, uh, Charles O'Brien, was running for mayor, and the hot button issue of the day was the raising of the MTA fare by a nickel, right? So the song was about, uh, uh, so fight the fare increase and vote George, I guess it's George O'Brien, so Charlie could get off of that train because he's stuck on this train and he can never get off because he can't afford to pay the extra nickel. So I took that song and I brought it up to date, and it's my vision of you vote for Liccione, John Liccione, you put me into Congress, and my vision of how we execute the plan such that this president is, removed and must not ever return. And so that's one. That's a really rousing song. I've performed that at a couple Democratic Party events here and gotten some good applause. Another one, you talked about ICE. I have another song I've written, which is a parody of another song, Woody Guthrie song. If you ever heard the song "You Can't Scare Me, I'm Sticking to the Union." Well, my version of that song is called American Made, MAID, the original one. My version is Mexican Made, Mexican made. And it's the story of this Mexican woman who's protesting the men in the masks, right? And I'll just give a quick quote of that from that. Uh, there once was a Mexican maid who never was afraid of the goons and the ginks and the icemen finks and the men in the masks that made the raid. She went to the city hall where a protest it was called. And when those icemen came around, she always stood her ground. But they told her, you can't stay here, not here in America. This ain't a democracy. This here's an autocracy. So go back to where you came from, Mexican maid, or it'll be alligator Alcatraz for Lee. And one more verse. This Mexican maid was wise to the tricks of the Icemen spies. She couldn't be fooled by those tools. She'd always organize the guys, and she'd always get her way. And her deportation was stayed. She'd show her green card to the National Guard, and this is what she'd say. You can't scare me. I'm sticking to America. I'm sticking to democracy. Stand against autocracy. You can't scare me. Ice Barbie Christie Gnome. I'll be sticking it to Christie Gnome till the day I die. So that's an example of, I mean, I can literally give that as, I've just given it as a speech. I just haven't sung it. So if you go to The Bleed by John Liccione, and they're up on my video as well as up on YouTube, that's just two songs. And one more song I won't go into is called They Stopped Loving Him Today, which is subtitled The MAGA Singularity Song, that moment in space and time where MAGA finally engages the critical thinking skills after years of being in denial. And, a singularity is that moment in space and time where reality flips in a heartbeat and you cross over the event horizon. And it's an old song called He Stopped Loving Her Today. I turned it into They Stopped Loving Him Today. And so these are both intended to be funny. Some of them are supposed to be, intended to be funny, but meaningful in the moment we're in today, in the immigration space, getting Trump out of office and getting him imprisoned and making an example so we never have this thing again, this kind of democracy destruction campaign that we're seeing. So music, I'm right with you. I'm doing that too. And
Well,
so
my point was saying is just that, someone, I've had one or two people say, well, you're doing this, and that's not my thing. You don't have to have my thing. You could do your thing, and it takes all of us just inputting the talents that, we were born with, right? Or that we've developed to try to promote our democracy. And it's going to take all of us, right? I'm only a drop. Okay. Said one drop in the ocean. We're an ocean. And we need to understand in unity, we have this huge, tremendous power. We don't all have to be working in the same, in the same place as long as we're all working in the same direction, right? That's how
Right.
we're going to get some change. So I thank you for your discussion today. Went a little over. I thought
Yeah.
I have to get a couple other things done today. So I want to thank you, John, for coming on here. I want to thank you for putting all the effort you have into trying to run for Congress and trying to, with these lawsuits. I really think lawsuits are one of the few ways that we have some accountability yet in this country, and we have to use it where we can. And you guys, just if you're in these areas and you're videotaping, if you're seeing things that are illegal, I feel for you if you have a red AG. I am sorry about that. But if you have a Democratic attorney general, I would so be sending that videotape. Anything you send to them has to have a date for it to be used in a court of law. So make sure you're dating that. Make sure any names that you have available, let's say the person that got hurt, you have their name, and you get the pictures of whoever, hurt them, and put that in there. If you're seeing hit and runs, if you're seeing them, take whatever and bust into people's houses. You guys, they don't have the right. They don't have a legal right to do that. They don't have a legal right to bust into cars. So videotape it, send it to your blue AGs. And, these guys start losing their houses when they start losing, and that will go through the ranks quickly. Oh, I lost my house. Well, but Vance said I had immunity. You don't have state immunity, asshole. And
That's
your house
right.
can be taken, and they can take all your money. And you have to happen a couple times, you guys. And these guys are going to really start being beta bitches and running the opposite way. And we need that to start happening sooner versus later because they have this huge budget. Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate you. And you're not, by the way, you are not just a drop in the bucket in the ocean. You are like a freaking meteor. Oh no, you're like a comet impact with these your issue. You're like a tidal wave. You're rippling out into the community here with information and ideas. And I really, really appreciate what you're doing. Keep doing it. I support you. I subscribe to you. So, so thanks for what you do.
But I thank you. And you guys, if you guys have any if you guys know any legal organizations or any grant foundations for trying to protect our elections, send that off to John. He needs some
Yeah.
help there. And so
Yeah.
I know there's organizations. If I'll look into it a little bit later today. I do have some appointments I have to get to right now, but later on I'll try looking into it and I'll send that to you too, John. But thank you for coming
Okay.
on here. I really appreciate that. And thank you so much for the lawsuits. Thank you for actually trying to hold somebody accountable. That's what we need. If we had more of that, we would have less of the shit going on that we got going. Thank you for your time, you guys. Thanks
All
for
right.
being here. Everybody have a great day and
Bye.
stay safe.
Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye bye.